It was a dark and stormy night when 17-year-old Alex first began to suspect that his father might be a serial killer. It had started innocuously enough. Alex had been helping his father clean out the family garage when he came across a box of old newspaper clippings. The headlines caught his eye, detailing a series of brutal murders that had taken place in their town over the past few years. Alex had heard about the killings, of course, but he'd never paid them much attention. Now, looking at the clippings, he began to see patterns and connections that he hadn't noticed before. At first, Alex tried to dismiss his suspicions. He loved his father and couldn't bear to think that he could be capable of such terrible things. But the more he thought about it, the more the evidence seemed to add up. There were too many coincidences, too many moments when his father had seemed nervous or defensive when the topic of the murders came up. Alex began to keep a closer eye on his father, watching for any signs that might confirm his suspicions. Days turned into weeks, and Alex's suspicions grew stronger. He started to notice small but telling details: his father's frequent trips out of town, the odd stains on his clothes, the way he seemed to know more about the killings than he let on. Alex became obsessed with his investigation, spending every spare moment researching the murders and analyzing his father's behavior. He hardly slept, hardly ate, barely even talked to his mother or his little sister. His entire world had become consumed by this one terrible possibility. Finally, one night, Alex decided he had to know for sure. He waited until his father was asleep, then snuck into his study and began to search through his things. It didn't take long to find what he was looking for: a hidden compartment in his father's desk containing a collection of items that made Alex's blood run cold. There were knives and ropes and gloves stained with what could only be blood. And, worst of all, there were photographs, graphic, gruesome images of the murder scenes that had been splashed across the news. Alex felt sick. He wanted to run, to scream, to do anything but confront his father with what he had found. But he knew he had to be brave. He crept back to his room and waited, his heart pounding in his chest, for his father to wake up. When he finally did, Alex's father found his son waiting for him in the kitchen. He looked surprised and a little annoyed, but not alarmed.
"What are you doing up so early?"
he asked. Alex took a deep breath.
"I know,"
he said, his voice shaking.
"I know what you've been doing. I found the things in your desk. I saw the pictures."
For a moment, his father looked almost relieved.
"Oh,"
he said.
"I see. You figured it out then."
Alex's mind was racing. What did his father mean? Did he really think this was just a simple case of figuring it out?
"What's is wrong with you?"
he shouted.
"How could you do this? How could you kill all those people?"
His father's expression was inscrutable.
"It wasn't about the killing,"
he said.
"It was about the power. The control. You have to understand, Alex. There are people out there who deserve to die. Who are better off dead. I was just helping them along."
Alex felt a surge of anger and disbelief.
That's insane!
He spat.
You can't just decide who deserves to live and who deserves to die. That's not your job.
His father's expression grew colder.
"And who are you to judge me, Alex? You don't know anything about what I've been through. You don't know what it's like to feel so powerless that the only way to feel alive is to take someone else's life. Anyway, you're just like me."
Alex recoiled from his father's words, feeling a mix of fear and revulsion. He couldn't believe that the man he had loved and trusted for his entire life was capable of such cruelty.
I can't let you keep doing this,
he said, his voice shaking.
I have to turn you in. I have to stop you.
His father's face twisted into a sneer.
And what do you think will happen then, Alex? You think the police will believe you? You think they'll just let me go to jail and forget about it? No! They'll come after me, and they'll come after you too. You'll be implicated in this. Your entire life will be ruined. Is that what you want?
Alex's mind raced as he tried to process what his father was saying. He didn't know what to do, who to turn to, how to make things right. All he knew was that he couldn't let this continue. He couldn't let his father keep killing innocent people. In the end, it was Alex's mother who made the decision for him. She had overheard their argument and had seen the evidence for herself. She confronted her husband and demanded that he turn himself in. He refused, of course, and things quickly turned violent. In the chaos that ensued, Alex managed to call the police and report his father's crimes. The next few days were a blur of interviews and investigations. Alex's father was eventually arrested and charged with multiple counts of murder. Alex and his family were questioned relentlessly, their lives turned upside down by the sudden spotlight of media attention. Through it all, Alex felt a mix of relief and grief, relief that his father had been caught, but grief for the lives he had taken and for the shattered trust and security of his childhood. Years passed, and Alex moved on with his life, as he had promised himself he would. He went to college, made new friends, and fell in love. He never forgot what his father had done, but he did his best to bury the memories deep inside and focus on building a better future for himself. But as he grew older, something began to change inside of him. He started having strange, vivid dreams, dreams of hunting, of chasing down prey and taking pleasure in the kill. At first, he dismissed them as nothing more than his subconscious working through the trauma of his past. But as time went on, the dreams became more frequent and more intense. And then, one day, he found himself standing in front of a stranger's door, his hands shaking with the sudden urge to kill. He recoiled in horror at the thought of what he was about to do. This was not who he was. He was not his father. He had spent his entire life trying to distance himself from that darkness. But the urge was too strong. He turned and fled, feeling sick with fear and self-loathing. For the next few days, he tried to ignore the urges, to push them away and focus on his normal life. But they kept coming back, stronger each time. He began to obsess over the thought of killing, studying the patterns of his father's victims, imagining how he would do it differently, better. It was only when he finally broke down and confided in his girlfriend that he realized what was happening.
It's like I'm possessed.
He told her, tears streaming down his face.
I can't control these thoughts. They're taking over my life.
Together, they sought out help, visiting therapists and psychiatrists and exploring every possible avenue for treating his sudden, terrifying urges. It was a long and difficult road, but eventually, Alex learned to manage his impulses. At least, that's what he managed to make everyone think. He never forgot what he had experienced, the darkness that had crept up inside of him. And he came to crave feeling that darkness every moment. Every day. He managed to fool everyone around him, pretending that he had overcome his darkness and that he was no longer a danger to himself or others. But deep down, he knew the truth, that the urge to kill still lingered inside of him, waiting for the right moment to take over. For years, he managed to keep the darkness at bay, using all of the techniques he had learned in therapy and working hard to build a stable life for himself. But one day, everything changed. Alex received a call from an old friend, someone he hadn't spoken to in years. The friend was in trouble, he said. He had gotten involved with some dangerous people and needed Alex's help to get out. At first, Alex hesitated, knowing that getting involved could put himself and his family in danger. But the urge to kill was already stirring inside of him, and he found himself unable to resist the thrill of the hunt. He agreed to meet with his friend, but instead of helping him, he stalked him through the city, relishing the feeling of power that came with each step. And then, when his friend was alone and vulnerable, he struck. In the end, Alex's story ended as it had begun, with the darkness inside his blood consuming his entire world. And though he had tried so hard to overcome his demons, in the end, lived to let them out to play.